Ever feel like something's whispering just out of sight, like something deeper calling you forward?
Ooh, yeah. It's like we all have these hidden chambers inside, full of power we haven't even tapped into.
Right. That's the feeling I got opening, taking charge, owning your destiny.
Hmm.
This book, it's less self-help and more like, I don't know, a secret manual for unlocking your true self. But it starts by asking, are you really living, or is life just happening to you?
That's a question for the ages. It's easy to get lost in the day-to-day, you know? We forget how much power we have to shape things. This book, it reminds us of that hidden power within us.
Okay, so let's unlock the first chamber. This one's about facing what hides in the shadows, our fears. The book says each time we avoid something out of fear, we're basically making that fear bigger.
Exactly. It's like we're building these walls, trapping ourselves in. But what if those walls are just illusions? What if our fears aren't real, but just stories we tell ourselves?
So what if we walked into those shadows, faced those monsters, and realized they weren't so scary after all?
Can you imagine that freedom? Breaking free from those limits we put on ourselves. That's what facing our fears does. It gives us back control, lets us step into the unknown.
There's something mysterious about that, right? Like maybe confronting our fears helps us understand ourselves better, find some hidden strength we didn't even know we had.
Absolutely. It's like a journey, uncovering all that potential inside. And this journey, it takes us to the next chamber, where we have to deal with the wild world of our emotions. The book asks, if a little comment or a bad day can throw you off balance, who's really in control?
Wow, yeah. It's like we've given the reins of our emotions to the outside world and let it decide how peaceful we feel. How do we take back that control?
This book, it talks about emotional intelligence. It's not just about knowing your emotions, but like mastering them, becoming the calm in the middle of the storm, no matter what's going on around you.
I love that image, going through life's challenges with that kind of peace. It's like having a secret weapon, a shield against all the emotional chaos out there. But what about the relationships in our lives?
Ah, yes. The book gets into that. It says we should never betray our own integrity just for a relationship.
There's that mystery again. What does it even mean to stay true to yourself in a relationship? And how do we make sure those connections actually help us grow instead of like dimming our light?
Well, the book talks about setting boundaries, like drawing lines to protect who you are. It's about honoring what you need and what you believe in while still respecting the other person, so you have a good balance.
So it's not about closing yourself off. It's about making sure your relationships let your true self shine through.
You got it. It's about creating a space where both people can thrive and become even brighter together than they could alone.
Okay, but this next chamber, this is where things get really wild. The book says that our thoughts actually create our reality. Like how we think shapes the world around us.
It's one of those things that's fascinating and kind of scary at the same time, isn't it? The idea that we're not just watching life happen, but we're actually creating it with our thoughts. It's a truth a lot of people miss. We think of the world as something outside of us, something that just happens. But maybe we're putting our own inner world onto, like, the screen of reality.
Right. The book goes into those dark corners of our minds, those thoughts that whisper doubts and fears, holding us back. It even gives examples like, I'm not good enough, or I'll never succeed. Why are those thoughts so dangerous if they seem so small?
Think of them like spells. Spells we cast on ourselves. Every time we say them, those negative beliefs get stronger, limiting what we can do before we even start.
It's like we're sabotaging ourselves without realizing it, putting up these invisible walls around our dreams. But what if we could change those spells, turn those negative thoughts into something positive and strong?
That's where a strong mindset comes in. The book talks about changing how we see things, like seeing challenges as chances to grow and setbacks as just steps on the way to where we're going.
Yeah, like we have a choice. Stay stuck in those shadows of self-doubt, or step into the light of what we can be. But how do we actually do that? How do we start believing in ourselves that much?
It starts with noticing. Noticing those negative thoughts and choosing to replace them with something true and powerful. It's about filling our minds with good things, surrounding ourselves with people who lift us up.
So it's not just about thinking positive, but about creating a whole positive world in our minds, a place where our dreams can grow.
Exactly. It's about shaping our inner world, because what we experience outside reflects what we believe inside.
There's something almost magical about that, don't you think? The idea that we can change our lives by changing our thoughts. But what about all the tough stuff, the pain that's just part of life?
Yes. That final chamber, the one people are afraid to open. The book doesn't shy away from it. It says that suffering is just part of being human.
It's true, but we try to avoid it. This book, though, it goes deeper. It says that pain isn't just something to get through, it's something to accept.
Right. It challenges us to change how we see it, to see pain not as punishment, but as a teacher. Like, what if those tough times actually hold the keys to our biggest growth?
That's a pretty radical thought. To see the darkness not as something to be afraid of, but as something that can show us the way. How do we actually learn from our pain, though? How do we turn suffering into strength?
The book suggests that pain is usually a signal. It's our deepest self telling us that something needs to change. Maybe it's a relationship that's not good for us anymore, or a job that's draining our energy, or even just ways we act that are holding us back.
So it's about paying attention to the pain, figuring out what it's trying to tell us, and then being brave enough to make a change.
Exactly. Pain might be uncomfortable, but it can also be what pushes us to transform. It can shake us awake, break us open, and in the end, help us understand ourselves and our purpose better.
There's something kind of beautiful in that, isn't there? The idea that even our darkest moments can help us grow the most. This is some heavy stuff. I think we all need a minute to think about these ideas. We'll be back in a bit to figure out how to put all of this into practice in our own lives. Okay, so we've explored these chambers and taking charge, and we've found all these secrets to unlocking our potential. But how do we actually use them? Like, how do we make real changes in our lives based on all of this?
It's like we have this map now, right? But we gotta go on the expedition. And any big adventure, it always starts with just one step.
So let's start with those shadows we talked about. The fears hiding in our minds. How do we even begin to face them? Should we just charge in?
Not really, no. Remember, courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about moving forward, even when you are afraid. Start small, find one fear that's been holding you back, and just take a tiny step towards it.
Maybe it's finally telling someone how you really feel. Or maybe it's finally going for that dream you've had forever. Whatever it is, facing that fear, even a little bit, starts to break down those walls we built around ourselves.
And with each fear you face, you'll find this strength inside you, a confidence you didn't know you had. It'll keep pushing you forward.
Okay, so what about that whirlwind of emotions? How do we become the calm in the storm? Do we need to do some crazy meditation or something?
Mastering your emotions, it's not really about pushing them down. It's more about understanding them. It's about figuring out what triggers those spirals of doubt and fear, the things that steal our peace.
So becoming an archaeologist of our own feelings, digging up all those hidden parts of ourselves.
Exactly. And once we know what those triggers are, we can start to figure out how to deal with them. Maybe it's just taking a few deep breaths, practicing mindfulness, or even just changing how we look at things.
Yeah, it's about realizing we have the power to choose how we react, even when everything around us feels crazy.
Right. Now, about those relationships that are such a big part of our lives, how do we make sure they actually show who we really are, our deepest values?
The book talked about setting boundaries, but that can feel kind of, aggressive almost.
Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about creating a safe space for yourself. A space where you can be real without worrying about judgment or having to compromise who you are.
It's about knowing that we all deserve relationships that feel good. Relationships that help us grow and become better versions of ourselves.
And if a relationship is draining you, if it makes you hide who you are or go against what you believe in, then maybe it's time to think about whether it should be in your life anymore.
Okay, so this whole idea that our thoughts create our reality, it's powerful, but also kind of a lot to take in. Where do we even start to change how we think?
Start by paying attention to the stories you're telling yourself. Are they positive and uplifting? Or are they full of doubt and negativity?
It's like we're all writing our own life stories, with every thought, every belief, and every expectation we have.
Yeah, and if you don't like the story you're living, you can change it. Choose to focus on what you're good at, celebrate your wins, and picture the future you want.
It's like shifting from thinking about what we don't have to thinking about all the amazing things we do have, realizing that we can achieve anything we set our minds to.
And lastly, let's revisit that tough chamber, the one filled with pain. How do we use suffering to make us stronger?
To be honest, this one's the hardest for me. It's so much easier to just avoid pain than to deal with it head on.
But fighting against pain only makes it worse. Embrace what pain can teach you. Ask yourself, what's this trying to show me?
Yeah, is it showing me something I need to change about how I act? A relationship that's not good for me anymore? Or maybe a belief that's holding me back from being who I'm supposed to be?
Pain is like a guide, often leading us towards a path that's more real and more fulfilling. It pushes us to grow, it tests us, and makes us stronger and more resilient.
So instead of running away from pain, we should see it as a chance to dig deeper into ourselves, to find out what our experiences are trying to tell us.
Exactly. Embrace the darkness, because often it's in the shadows that we find our greatest strength.
Taking charge, owning your destiny, has given us this incredible map to our hidden potential, a way to awaken the power inside us. But it's up to each of us to take the journey.
So go out there and unlock those mysteries within you. Embrace the challenges, face your fears, and never stop exploring who you truly are.
Until next time, keep diving deep.